When the Nazis came to power, they brought about a cultural change that completely transformed the lives of the German people. One of the many objectives of Hitler's followers was to control the sexuality of the population. The goal was for the Germans to reproduce at any cost and reverse the downward trend in the birth rate. To do this, the government implemented all kinds of incentives and absurd programs, while establishing strict surveillance of customs. A person who violated the sexual ideals of Nazism could end up detained in a concentration camp, awaiting death by starvation, disease, or firing squad. Today, in this new episode of Military History, we will tell you everything about control over sexuality in the Third Reich. Are you ready? Let's get started. During the 1920s, before Hitler came to power, Germany experienced a period of relative sexual freedom, in which traditional values lost weight among the population. This provoked the reaction of the most conservative sectors of society, among which was the National Socialist Party. Hitler's followers deployed a propaganda campaign where they blamed the Weimar Republic, as the political regime of those years was called, for the low birth rate. After World War I, fewer and fewer babies were being born in Germany, and for the Nazis it was a consequence of new trends, which they described as degenerate and extravagant. Starting in 1933, with the rise of the Third Reich, the Nazis sought to promote their particular vision of sexuality that, while oppressive and controlling, was riddled with contradictions. On the one hand, they promoted traditional values, emphasizing the importance of heterosexuality and chastity. Adolf Hitler himself never made public his love affairs, and for a long time, the population was not even aware of the existence of Eva Braun, who was his partner for many years. The Führer kept her a secret because he wanted to be seen as a celibate and pure man, disinterested in romance and solely committed to Germany, which would have been his true love. On the other hand, he was convinced that if the female population found out that he had a woman, they would stop supporting him. For Nazism, heterosexuality was a moral obligation, since it was the only way for couples to have children, repopulate the Third Reich, and ensure the future of the Aryan race. In this way, under the facade of sexual conservatism, the government associated having relationships and having fun with patriotism and public service to a greater cause. On the other hand, the regime praised the traditional family consisting of a mother, a father, and several children. Based on this, official propaganda took the Goebbels, the family of Hitler's minister, as a model, and Germans were encouraged to imitate them. In the newspapers there were photos of the children playing in the garden, helping their mother with the housework or hugging Uncle Adolf, as the dictator was called. At the same time, however, the Third Reich indirectly encouraged sex before or outside of marriage. Although this may seem contradictory, the objective of Nazism was to increase the birth rate, regardless of the fact that for this it was necessary to turn a blind eye and avoid marriage. In fact, a large part of the young people between the ages of 10 and 18 were affiliated with the Hitler Youth and the League of German Girls, the Nazi associations reserved for minors. On occasions when meetings were held between young men and women, the hierarchs encouraged relationships between them, with the aim that, by starting their sexual life early, they would reproduce as soon as possible. Consequently, in the 1930s, there was an increase in teenage pregnancies, and government propaganda praised the role of single mothers, pointing to them as a pillar of the new society. Following the same logic, the Third Reich sought the legal equalization of extramarital children with those born within wedlock, so that people would not refuse to have them. In this sense, the following phrase is attributed to Hitler, pronounced in 1944, "A work of pedagogy is essential. We should give precise instructions to writers and artists. It will be necessary to prohibit novels, stories, works or films where the extramarital child is treated as if it were one of inferior value, as an illegitimate child." The Führer's followers even flirted with polygamy, that is, with a man having many wives at the same time. The most resonant case was that of Martin Bormann, Hitler's secretary and one of the leaders of the National Socialist Party. Although he was married, he started an extramarital affair with an actress named Manja Barons. Bormann had no problem in confessing it to his wife, to whom he sent letters saying the following: "I feel incredibly happy being doubly married. What do you say, my love, of this crazy husband of yours?" Curiously, the answer was not delayed, and when it arrived, it was clear that to his wife this was not a problem. The response read as follows: "It's a shame that such beautiful women are denied the chance to be mothers. You can change that, but you'll have to be careful that your lover has a child 1 year and I have another the next, so that you always have a woman available. It would be nice if a law was enacted at the end of the war, to allow able-bodied men to have 2 wives at the same time." However, polygamy and extramarital affairs were only welcome if they were practiced by a man. The Nazi movement believed that the female population should be kept in a subordinate and passive position, that is, the complete opposite of the trends of the 1920s. The ideal woman was the one who stayed at home, took charge of the domestic chores, met the demands of her husband, and took care of their children. To encourage this vision, the government prohibited women's access to leadership positions in the Nazi Party, in order to keep them away from politics, which was reserved for men. In any case, this did not prevent several women from occupying prominent places in the Third Reich. Some of them were Ilse Koch, a key figure in the Buchenwald concentration camp known for her sadism, and Leni Riefenstahl, the film director of the regime's films. It is interesting to note that female homosexuality was not treated as severely as male homosexuality. For the homosexual population, the years of Nazism were full-blown hell. Government propaganda maintained that love between men was an aberration and an attack on nature, that it went against the mandate to reproduce the Aryan race. The Gestapo was the institution that carried out the persecution, and in 1934 drew up the so-called pink lists, which contained the names of homosexuals in each town. Armed with this information, the Nazis raided the gay community's clubs and bars, arrested their members, and detained them without warrants. While in custody, they were blackmailed or tortured into betraying other homosexuals, and thus, in this way, the procedure was repeated. Beginning in 1938, the Gestapo announced that it would send gay men to concentration camps. In these places, they were identified with a pink triangle embroidered on their prison uniform, and they were subjected to daily humiliation and torment. As we can see, Nazism insisted on controlling the sexual life of the Germans, directing it to its own liking to satisfy its objectives of reproduction of the supposed Aryan race. This nightmare would last until 1945, when World War II ended. We have reached the end of the video, and we want to ask you, what was the most striking thing about sexuality in Nazism? Leave us your answer in the comment box below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn about many more military events that left their mark on history.